Hey everyone, welcome back to another recap video. Make sure to like and subscribe. This show is about how a man is obsessed with goblins, and even though there are other monsters, he only slays goblins. Everyone thinks that he is crazy for only hunting goblins, but he is the only one that knows how truly gruesome and dangerous they are. We will learn as well how goblins are fearsome creatures. The show starts and we encounter a youthful priestess who becomes a part of a company of rookie adventurers. Their collective intent is to undertake an expedition into a cavern infested with goblins. The situation takes a swift turn for the worse when the inexperienced party falls into an ambush orchestrated by the goblins. Consequently, all members, save for the priestess, meet their end in the forms of death, violation, or captivity. The priestess is saved from her dire fate by the timely appearance of the Goblin Slayer, a figure swift in dispatching the attacking goblins. In her decision to trail alongside the Goblin Slayer, she delves deeper into the cave, witnessing his relentless elimination of goblins. Moreover, she gains insights into their psyche and combat strategies through his teachings. With the priestess' invaluable aid, the Goblin Slayer successfully eradicates the remaining goblins, even besting a goblin shaman known as Goblin. Amidst their exploration, they chance upon several goblin offspring whom the Goblin Slayer ruthlessly exterminates to preclude potential future threats. Despite the trauma endured, the priestess resolves to align herself with the Goblin Slayer, becoming his partner in adventure. Notably, Goblin Slayer also accompanies Muzum, who is his childhood friend, on a journey to sell her uncle's agricultural yield within the city. Subsequently, he makes his way to the Adventurers Guild in search of more goblin-related jobs. However, his fellow adventurers regard him as an outsider, owing to his humble armor and his exclusive focus on quests related to goblins. This is noteworthy considering his high-ranking status within the guild. Nonetheless, amidst these circumstances, Guild Girl, a guild staff member, appreciates his unwavering commitment to eradicating goblins. Such dedication is rare, given that most adventurers dismiss goblin quests due to their meager rewards, and those who undertake them are frequently novices. Goblin Slayer divulges a haunting chapter of his past. During his youth, his village fell victim to a goblin assault, resulting in the demise of nearly all residents, including the parents of Muzum. In this tragedy, he bore witness to the horrifying events that befell his elder sister, subjected to a heinous assault followed by brutal murder at the hands of goblins. This heart-wrenching experience spurred him to undergo rigorous training, honing his skills to confront the goblin menace. However, it also left an indelible mark on his psyche, rendering him socially inept and consumed by an unrelenting obsession to eliminate goblins. A dire warning from his Muzum's uncle underscores the potential for him to remain forever estranged from the realm of normalcy. Despite her uncle's admonitions, Muzum persists in her unwavering support for her companion. She carries the burden of regret, longing to apologize for not bringing him to the city on the fateful day preceding the goblin onslaught. In due course, Goblin Slayer and the Priestess launch an assault on a goblin-occupied fortress. Through fire and determination, they lay waste to the stronghold, thwarting any escape the goblins might have sought. Meanwhile, in a separate location, a high elf and her companions embark on a quest to locate a particular adventurer by the name of Ortbolg. High Elf Archer, Dwarf Shaman, and Lizard Priest approach Guild Girl with a specific request, seeking an adventurer known as Ortbold and Beer Cutter. These appellations actually pertain to Goblin Slayer in the distinct tongues of their respective races. During the exchange between Goblin Slayer and the trio, the priestess is safeguarded by a witch, a familiar acquaintance of Goblin Slayer. This protective action becomes necessary when a group of inexperienced adventurers attempts to persuade the priestess to sever her ties with Goblin Slayer, suspecting his motives and casting doubt on his intentions. They conjecture that he merely employs the priestess as a lure. Amid this turmoil, High Elf Archer elucidates to Goblin Slayer that their races have formed an alliance with the human kingdoms against the resurgence of the Demon Lord's army. Their objective is to recruit him for a quest aligned with this cause. Initially, Goblin Slayer declines their proposition, much to the chagrin of High Elf Archer. The prospect of battling demons does not resonate with him. However, a pivotal shift occurs when Dwarf Shaman, Lizard Priest, and Dwarf Shaman disclose the existence of goblin-occupied ruins within elven territories. Political complexities prevent the elves from mobilizing their forces to address this concern. Priestess, prompted by this revelation, elects to join their quest. She confronts Goblin Slayer for not having inquired about her willingness to partake. As the group sets up camp and indulges in the culinary delights distinctive to their races, a spirited High Elf Archer, inebriated, rebukes Goblin Slayer for his perceived discourtesy. Meanwhile, the others engage in discourse concerning the origins of goblins. The following day, High Elf Archer eliminates the goblin sentries stationed at the ruins, enabling the group's entry. Within the ruins, Goblin Slayer's party discerns a conspicuous absence of totems, signaling the absence of a goblin shaman leading this faction. Following the rescue of an elven captive subjected to goblin torment, an incensed high elf archer pledges to avenge her kin. The group encounters a chamber where the goblins are at rest. Employing spells that induce slumber and silence, Goblin Slayer's companions eliminate the unsuspecting goblins without rousing their comrades. However, this very silence inadvertently alerts the goblins' leader, a formidable ogre, and one of the generals in the demon lord's ranks. The ensuing confrontation sees the ogre employing both strength and fire magic, a formidable adversary due to his imposing stature and rapid regenerative abilities. With his allies at their limit, Goblin Slayer uses his trump card, a magic teleportation scroll given to him by Witch, which sends strong jets of water from the bottom of the ocean to damage the ogre before giving him the killing blow. As elvish reinforcements arrive to take over the ruins and Goblin Slayer's group heads back to the city, her experience with Goblin Slayer and his obsession makes High Elf Archer want to take Goblin Slayer to a proper adventure. After recovering from his wounds, Goblin Slayer helps Muzu cart supplies to town. There he meets High Elf Archer, Dwarf Shaman, and Lizard Priest and tells them he is open to the idea of exploring some ruins with them. Priestess informs him she has been promoted to the next adventurer rank and formally thanks Goblin Slayer for saving her life. He then encounters two young adventurers who lost a sword in the sewers and advises them to use a club as an improvised weapon so they can retrieve it. Guild Girl asks him to act as an observer on a promotion exam, where she punishes a rescout for stealing loot from his party. The rescout considers attacking Guild Girl, but is dissuaded by Goblin Slayer's presence. Meanwhile, the two young adventurers recover the sword thanks to Goblin Slayer's advice. Goblin Slayer then receives a special goblin slaying request from Sword Maiden herself. 10 years ago, a group of heroes, including Sword Maiden, slew the original Demon Lord. Currently, the new hero and her companions slay the resurrected Demon Lord in another part of the world and crush his army, though some generals remain on the loose. Goblin Slayer and the rest of the party journey to Watertown, where they meet Sword Maiden, now retired. Sword Maiden informs them there have been a string of violent murders in the town recently, and they suspect the culprits are goblins in the town's sewer system. Since the army won't mobilize to fight goblins and other adventurers have failed, she decided to reach out to Goblin Slayer. Goblin Slayer agrees to the quest and leads the party into the sewers, where they discover the goblins have learned to use boats to navigate the sewers. This puzzles Goblin Slayer as goblins have never been smart enough to use boats before. After sinking a goblin boat, the party attracts the attention of a giant alligator, which they take advantage of by tricking it into destroying the rest of the goblin fleet. As they return to the surface, Goblin Slayer is troubled that the goblins knew how to use boats yet were unaware of the alligator, leading him to conclude that somebody had placed the goblins in the sewers. After a brief rest in town, Goblin Slayer and his party venture back into the sewers to investigate the source of the goblins. Goblin Slayer brings along the canary to warn them of any poison gas as a precaution. The party delves deeper into the sewers, but is led into a trap and locked in a tomb. The goblins also begin pumping poison gas into the room, which the canary warns the party of, and they successfully seal off the vents to prevent the gas from entering. The goblins then resort to attacking the party directly, revealing a goblin champion is leading them. The goblin champion critically wounds Goblin Slayer and attacks Priestess as the goblins overwhelm the rest of the party. Inspired by the anguished cries of the Priestess, Goblin Slayer rouses from his unconscious state and launches a fierce assault on the goblin champion from a concealed vantage, extracting his right eye in the process. Seized by terror, the goblin champion and his minions hastily retreat, affording the party an opportunity to regather their strength. Though Priestess' injuries are mended, Goblin Slayer succumbs to the weight of his own wounds, his body yielding to their toll. In the sanctified precincts of the Temple of Law, Goblin Slayer awakens, having been rejuvenated through a miraculous resurrection. In a moment of intimacy, Sword Maiden confides in Goblin Slayer, divulging a harrowing past where she fell into the clutches of goblins a decade prior, subjected to unspeakable atrocities that left her marred and partially sightless. Even as one of the valiant figures who vanquished the demonic sovereign, her heart still trembles with dread in the presence of goblins. Meanwhile, High Elf Archer, Dwarf Shaman, and Lizard Priest choose to venture further into the labyrinthine sewers, while Goblin Slayer and Priestess dedicate the day to convalescing within the town's confines, mending their equipment. During this interval, Spearman and a companion deliver an enigmatic package to Goblin Slayer. Elsewhere, Musum remains ensconced in anticipation of Goblin Slayer's return, all while grappling with her uncle's grim premonition that one day he might never come back. The subsequent dawn finds the entire assembly retracing their steps into the subterranean passages, stumbling upon a chamber zealously guarded by a formidable demon. Employing the contents of the mysterious parcel, Fine Flower, Goblin Slayer orchestrates a cataclysmic ignition, shrouding the room in a blinding burst of dust and flame. The ensuing conflagration eradicates the demon, and the group proceeds to scrutinize the enigmatic mirror that had been under its watchful vigil. Astonishingly, this mirror conceals a portal connecting the sewers of Watertown to the realm of the Green Moon, affording an insidious passage for goblins to infiltrate. As Lizard Priest toils to detach the mirror from its moorings, the remaining members of the party repel the counteroffensive waged by the Goblin champion. With the mirror successfully liberated, Goblin Slayer directs the group to find refuge beneath its towering surface, a sanctuary from which Dwarf Shaman promptly brings the ceiling crashing down upon the goblins. The malevolent creatures are vanquished, yet the mirror's protective embrace shields the party, sparing them from harm's grasp. Ultimately, the party encases the mirror in unyielding cement before submerging it within the river's depths, driven by the imperative to forestall the acquisition of its forbidden knowledge by other goblin tribes. In a solemn rendezvous with Sword Maiden, Goblin Slayer divulges his suspicion that she harbored insights beyond her prior revelations. In response, Sword Maiden acknowledges the colossal alligator as her otherworldly companion, guarding the subterranean passages. Furthermore, she exposes the origins of the mirror, an artifact enshrined by a cult of demon devotees that the hero had previously eradicated. Despite the cult's decimation, Sword Maiden's reluctance to act against the goblin threat arose from a clandestine yearning for others to comprehend the depths of goblins' malevolence. Goblin Slayer merely replies he cannot save her from her trauma, but he will kill goblins if she asks him, even in her dreams, which alleviates her worries. On the way back to their town, Goblin Slayer tells the rest of the party he plans to make ice treats, and the party promises to help him. The hero's defeat of the Demon Lord and his army are confirmed, and she becomes the 10th person ever to achieve a platinum rank. Festivities are held across the land. Meanwhile, Goblin Slayer continues his daily chores and accompanies Muzu to the town to get his armor repaired. While there, he sees veteran adventurers training rookie adventurers when he encounters the rest of his party, who invite him out for lunch, with Muzu and Guild Girl also joining. During the meal, Guild Girl notes the guild has started a program to have retired adventurers train rookie adventurers, so retired adventurers stay employed and rookie adventurers have a better chance of surviving. Muzu wonders if Goblin Slayer will ever retire. The next day, Goblin Slayer performs more chores around the farm and reads a letter from Sword Maiden, thanking him for his help and telling him she no longer sees goblins in her dreams. That night, Muzu shares a moment with Goblin Slayer and tells him he should think about his future. Going to bed as she reflects on the fact Goblin Slayer can't kill goblins forever and wonders what will happen when that time comes. The next day, Goblin Slayer does his daily patrol around the farm and discovers goblin footprints. Goblin Slayer concludes that a horde of over 100 goblins will attack the farm soon. He warns Muzu he cannot fight that many goblins in the open and urges her to run, but she refuses to abandon her home for a second time. Goblin Slayer heads to town to ask the other adventurers for help. They refuse at first since there's no quest or reward posted for fighting the goblin horde. Goblin Slayer then offers everything he owns: equipment, assets, knowledge, and time, as the reward for helping him fight. Guild Girl then announces that she's posted a bounty of 1 gold for each dead goblin, which convinces the rest of the adventurers to join. Goblin Slayer warns the horde's adventurers are being led by a goblin master, a highly intelligent goblin specializing in leadership. He devises an effective strategy for the adventurers to fight the horde, and the first few waves of goblins are easily defeated. Subsequently, the Goblin Lord dispatches a cadre of hobgoblins and goblin champions towards the valiant adventurers, simultaneously making an endeavor to make his escape. Yet his flight is intercepted by none other than Goblin Slayer. In the midst of the seasoned adventurers' decisive triumph over the hobgoblins and goblin champions, Goblin Slayer engages the Goblin Lord in solitary combat, only to meet defeat. However, in a critical moment where Goblin Slayer's life hangs in the balance, Priestess employs her arcane prowess, weaving 2 potent protection spells that ensnare the malevolent Goblin Lord. Employing a treacherous stratagem, the Goblin Lord beseeches Priestess for clemency, a ploy that proves futile as Goblin Slayer resolutely terminates his existence. As the veil lifts, it becomes apparent that this intricate orchestration was all part of Goblin Slayer's calculated strategy, a ruse designed to ensnare the Goblin Lord, using himself as the lure. With the annihilation of the Goblin Horde and the reclamation of the embattled farmstead, the triumphant adventurers reconvene at the guild to revel in their hard-earned victory. During these festivities, Goblin Slayer confides in Muzu, who now nurtures aspirations of embarking on her own adventuring journey. In response to a request from Priestess, Goblin Slayer finally lifts his helmet to show his face. Those around him are astonished to see his face. The show ends, but Goblin Slayer will return soon as there are more goblins to hunt and even more mysteries to uncover. Thanks for watching. Like and comments for more recap videos.